It's our turn, episode number 37, Card Drafting Games. In this episode, I talk about card drafting games. I also have an interview with game designers Alice Davis and Matt Jacobs.
This is the Dice Tower Network, adding games to your wish list since 2005.
Hosting for this episode is generously provided by our fantastic patrons on patreon.com. As a thank you to our patrons, we post extra exclusive content just for them. If you'd like to help us out by pledging $1 per month or more, please visit patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. Every dollar helps to keep this show going strong. Hi, this is Cathy. Welcome back to Our Turn Women on Gaming. I guess today it's just my turn. I've got some great stuff to talk to you about, though. I did some serious gaming on the 4th of July holiday here in the United States. Many people have this day off, and my friends Dwayne and Yuriko, hi Dwayne and Yuriko, had a game night at their place. So let's start with Concordia. Concordia is designed by Matt Gertz and published by Rio Grande Games, and it was published in 2013. It's a Euro-style game that has the theme of trading in the Mediterranean. You start the game with a colonist and a boat. The colonist walks on the land and the boat explores the coastline. Everyone starts in Rome. Each player has an identical hand of cards that dictate what actions they can do on their turn. Each player is allowed to play one of these cards on her turn. They control movement, trade, purchasing more cards, and picking up your discard pile and putting it back into your hand. When the in-game conditions are met, which are either one player runs out of house tokens or the card market is empty, then everyone scores. This was my third time playing this game. When it was first suggested, I was really hesitant because my last two attempts, I was lost the entire game and lost very badly. However, I think something must have clicked with me this time because I ended up winning the game. This was my husband Mark's first time playing the game, and I expected him to come in last, which he did. Not unexpected for a first play of this particular game, in my opinion. I thought I'd come in second or third in our 4-player game because the other players I was playing with, Mike and Kale, hi guys, they're really good at playing these kinds of games. I was absolutely shocked when the scoring was done and I had won. The components in this game are basic but good quality wooden tokens. There are meeple for your colonists, boats, and trade goods like grain, an anvil for tools, a wine jug, and a blue square for cloth. The cards are all nice too and are easy to shuffle, draw, and read. The artwork in the game is pretty basic, but it makes the game very easy to play once you get the hang of it. For components, artwork, and gameplay, I give this game a 4 out of 5 on our OTP scale. It's a good, solid game. This game is, I believe, out of print. When I looked it up on Board Game Geek, Amazon had it for $98.97, and eBay had it listed for $135. Because it's a Rio Grande game, that doesn't surprise me. Next, I got in a game of Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars is designed by Jacob Frixelius and published by Stronghold Games in 2016. I've described this game in past episodes, and I really enjoy playing it. However, I have yet to win. I came in third of 4 players this time, so I was pleased not to be dead last. I was concentrating more on creating heat and placing tiles on the board than in accumulating victory points at the end of the game. I didn't realize this short-sightedness until the final scoring. I need to figure out how to balance victory points, tile placement, and earning awards at the end. I just haven't found a strategy that works yet. However, I will still give this game a 4 out of 5 on our scale. I enjoy it every time I play. The last game I'll talk about today is a new one just out from Ludonaut called Oh Captain. It was designed by Florian Cyrier, and I apologize if I butchered that. And it was published this year. In fact, it just came out in June. And it's a light filler game that accommodates 3 to 6 players in about 20 minutes. In this game, one player is the captain and the others are the crew. Everyone is shipwrecked on an island when they were saved by a mysterious sea creature called a nuka. You are welcome to look around for treasure, but leave the Nuka eggs alone. They're sacred and worth negative points at the end of the game. As each crew member finds treasure by drawing a card from a deck that's passed around the table, they have to tell the captain what they found and wait for the captain's decision on if she will buy it from them or not. If the captain declines, then the crew can use the object to try and get loot from her comrades. However, the crew are not required to tell anyone the truth about what they found. If they try to shoot someone, for example, and their bluff is called, they have to reveal what they did find. Do they really have the gun or not? At the beginning of each player's turn, the captain has to evaluate that crew member's pile of gold. If the crew member has more money than the captain can require the crew to pledge loyalty and pay a coin, or the crew member can mutiny and become captain herself. If a crew member becomes the captain, then the discard pile, which the captain can monitor, and a cute little message in a bottle token are passed to the new captain. The game ends when the Nomads card is drawn. The Nomads buy pistols, grappling hooks, and lizards from the individuals with the biggest majority of each type, and the richest player wins the game. I have high praise for both the components in this game and for the box itself. The message in a bottle marker is a unique way to designate who the current captain is. The cards are of good quality and easy to shuffle, and the artwork is lovely and easy to understand. The player mats and coins are nice, stiff cardboard and are easy to understand once the symbology is explained during rules explanation. The box is an unusual one for a game. It's closer to a cube than a traditional box. However, inside the box, all of the components, including the deck holder that gets passed around the table, all have spots in a box organizer, and they stay where they're put. Thank you, Ludonaut, for thinking that part of game production through. Everything is stored nicely and protected during travel to game nights and for storage. This was a fun, light social deduction game that invites players to do a bit of piratey role-playing. My friend Amy came in second place by telling the truth every time. At first we believed she was telling the truth, but after a while we figured she must be lying. But she wasn't. She only lost the game by 1 coin. We played a second time, and both times we had a lot of fun. Because this is a light filler game and a bit silly, I give this game a 4 out of 5 on our scale. It's a good, solid game that I look forward to playing with both my gamer and non-gamer friends. And that's what I've been playing. You've heard us referring to and rating games by a rating scale. Here's how we're using this scale. 1. Give me back the time I spent playing it. 2. Has great potential as kindling. 3. Decent with some bugs. 4. A good, solid game. And 5. Buy this now. This is Cathy, and for the interview today, I am welcoming Alice Davis and Matt Jacobs to the show, and they have designed a brand new game that just came out at Origins, and they're here to tell us all about it. So, Alice and Matt, welcome to our turn. It's your turn now. Tell us about yourselves and your game.
Yay, it's my turn. My name's Alice. I'm from Oregon. I have 2 kids. And I am a game designer. My first game just launched at Origins. It's called Kitten Clash. It's a speed dexterity real-time game. It takes about a minute to play on your first time, but once you know how to play, 30 seconds is as long as it will take, at least.
Wow.
Most. 30 seconds. You're matching colors. You're taking cards. You get double points for your opponent cards, single points for your cards. When somebody runs out of cards, then the game's over. Count up your points.
And your points are the number of cards that you've collected.
Correct. It's like a slapjack type of, I'm going to get it first type feel. If you slap your hands on top of those cards first, you get them. And then you keep filling in left to right. There's a total of 6 piles in front of you. There's 3 for you and 3 for the other player. And they're heads up against each other. So you're laying out cards on yours. So either the pirate kittens or the ninja kittens. You're laying out cards on top of yours. And if there's an orthogonal match with colors.
So that means straight across.
Yes. But we have 2 wilds in each deck, and they're white. So sometimes a wild will come up, and you can match any way. So you got to quickly think which direction you want to go with that wild.
Okay. I saw a video that Matt did at Origins, and it looks super fun. But one of the things he demonstrated was that if you guys lay out 3 cards, and you're doing this simultaneously, right?
That's correct.
So if you lay out 3 cards and there's no matches, then you stack the next 3 cards on top of the first 3 cards. Is that right?
Yeah, you kind of create a pile, and then when the top card matches any other card and you would normally take them, you take that whole pile.
And you get points for all of those cards.
Correct.
That is really clever. I haven't ever seen a game like that before.
Well, we appreciate that.
One of my favorite quick dexterity games that this one kind of reminds me of is Lunacy. Have you ever seen that one?
I have seen it, but I have not played it in quite some time.
Oh, okay. That one has, depending on the number of players you have, the fewer players, the more piles you have to look at. If you're playing, I think, 5 or 6, then you've only got 1 pile. You have to match one of the pictures on the card in order to put your card down, and the first person who empties their hand wins, kind of like your game. And that one, when my husband and I play, man, we go for blood. So I can imagine we'd probably do the same thing with your game too.
Oh yeah, Alice likes to get her nails done, and that can be rather treacherous.
I can imagine.
Offensive move.
Uh-huh.
And defense at the same time.
A little bit.
And it only costs $60.
So I love the artwork on the cover, and I saw some of the cards in the video. Tell me about the artist you got for this.
Claire Donaldson is a wonderful human being that works for Daily Magic, and she did all the art for it. She also did all the art for Donuts for Donuts, which was recently... it hasn't released yet. It comes out soon from Daily Magic and Game Right. She's been an absolute joy, and we finally got to meet her at Emerald City Comic Con earlier this year, and she's much taller than I expected, but she's absolutely wonderful.
Very cool. I thought that the Pirates and Ninja Kittens were just adorable, and I have a friend who collects kitten games, and I am certain I'm going to be getting this for her. So what is the age range on your game?
Well, we have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and our 5-year-old doesn't quite get it, but our 7-year-old does. On the box, I believe it says 8,
okay.
8 plus. Oh, 6 plus? 6 plus?
Okay, great. So young kids will usually get this. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Our 7-year-old demos it at game night.
That's awesome. So
he
good.
enjoys it.
Fantastic. So any idea when this is going to be hitting stores, or where's it going to be available?
Daily Magic just signed a deal with PSI for distribution. So it's looking like what we were originally told is that it would be available online towards the end of the summer, because the copies that we have got airshipped over from the manufacturer, and the rest are still on the boat coming over from China, essentially.
Oh, okay.
As soon as those get in, it's going to go up online and go into distribution. We've been told the end of summer is when you're going to start to see it in kind of the more hobby shops. And then shortly after that, it's looking like, a possibility of like a Target and a Walmart.
Oh, fantastic. That'll be great for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was this a Kickstarter game at all, or did a publisher pick this up?
A publisher picked it up, actually.
Okay.
Book reminded me that today is the year anniversary of us signing our very first game contract.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's neat. So do you have any other games in the works?
I do. I've actually, in the last year, I've signed 2 other games.
Oh, very nice.
The second game I signed was a co-design with my 7-year-old and I. He came up to me and said, "Mom, I want to make a game just like you and Matt." Okay, let's do it. And I said, "What kind of game do you want to make?" He said, "I want to make a game about dinosaurs." Okay, what do you want to do in this game? I want to build dinosaurs. So after working with cards and talking and working with cards, we came up with a game called Build-A-Saurus.
Oh, neat.
Build-A-Saurus is a kid's game, intro to strategy, where you are building dinosaurs from different eras. You have the opportunity to either select cards from a common pool in the middle of the table. You can select 2, or you can choose to steal a dinosaur part in front of another player, because after you collect your dinosaur part, it remains in front of you face up until you have the parts to build a dinosaur, all 3 parts. Once you complete 3 dinosaurs, that's the end of the game, and you win.
That sounds like fun.
Right now we're working on expansions. It should be on Kickstarter around this time next year, maybe a little later. I think 12 games out of Seattle.
Okay.
And then I made a game, let's see, about 2 months ago. Everybody was playing D&D and I was just exhausted and I didn't want to play. So I was like, I guess I'll make a game. So I made a game. We played it that night, and a month later I signed it to a game company.
Oh, wow. You're having great luck.
Yes. Apparently that's not normal. So the game I signed just recently was to Daily Magic Games, the same person who put out, the same group of people that put out Kitten Clash. Uh-huh. Their plan is to kickstart this game. It's still in development. It's a drafting, worker placement, resource management type of game.
Okay.
So.
Wow, that sounds great. It sounds like they're coming right off the top of your head.
Yeah, I have a lot of support, and it's awesome that the people that are surrounding me, the companies that I'm working for, are supporting me 100%. They're telling me, go get it. You know, they're not putting me down because I'm a female. It's awesome. Like, it's a great feeling to have, like, just being in the community that I'm in.
So are there very many women in your game groups?
Yeah, quite a few, actually. We host a game night every Monday night here in Corvallis at New Morning Bakery from 6 to 9. And a lot of college kids come, male, female, all ages, all, like, everybody comes. And we don't exclude anybody. And everybody that comes is all positive and happy to play games. We sit down, we meet new people, and we have a good time. Our kids, Dawson and Olivia, they run the kids group. So they get it because they're like, okay, who wants to play this next? And like our son demos Valeria Card Kingdoms and games that are 13, 14 plus year old games, and he's 7. So
that's great.
He loves it.
What do you think that people in general need to do to entice more women to come into the hobby and sit down at the table and play games?
Stop mansplaining stuff. I mean, me personally, I've never had that problem, but I've heard stories, you know, where people have been in situations like that. Just surround yourself by, you know, awesome people and not people who are douches, I guess. But what needs to happen is people need to just stop. I don't know. I get angry when I hear things like that.
Yeah, me too.
For me, I've never had a problem with it because I surround myself with positive people who encourage me to be who I am.
That's great.
If I want to do something that's manly, then do it. They don't put labels on stuff like that.
Right. One of the things I think is starting to happen quite a bit is that people are starting to accept one another for who they are.
Absolutely.
Rather than who they think they should be. And I think that's important in welcoming people in general into the hobby.
Something that we've been very blessed by, I guess, or very lucky, I don't know, whatever proper terminology people prefer, is we're Pacific Northwest, which is a rather liberal place, right? So
yep.
We're lucky in that we have wonderful people that are accepting of that, right? And every designer I've ever met, we all kind of believe that a rising tide raises all ships.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we all want to see each other do well because it's only going to do well for all of us. And excluding somebody based on gender or race or anything to that effect, from that only brings us all down. So we've been very lucky in that the industry has been very accepting of us. I mean, we've had 1 or 2 occasions where the more passive-aggressive kind of, like, I guess, microaggressions where guys will walk up to the table, they will see us there promoting our game, and they'll immediately start talking to me and assume that it's my game and that Alice is just along for the ride or my girlfriend or whatever the case is. And we try to correct that as quickly as possible, as politely as possible. I understand the frame of mind that a person would walk up and assume that one person did one thing and one person did not. So we're trying to also be inclusive to people that don't necessarily subscribe to the ideal that, or don't necessarily realize that women are somewhat prominent in this industry and need to be more prominent. And I guess we're including them because we want to help to influence them in some way, shape, or form and make them realize that this is an industry for all.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So your game will be available end of summer, you said, and more to come from both of you. That is exciting. I'm so glad you've had such great luck getting your designs picked up.
Thank you.
How can people reach you online?
You can follow me on Twitter is my best source of social media, and it's at Pated, P-A, the number 8, T-E-D. P-A-8, T-E-D.
Okay.
Hers is complicated. Mine's a little easier. Mine's PNW Beard, which stands for Pacific Northwest Beard.
Okay. Well, I will have both of those in the show notes for anybody that wants to look you up. Anyway, I hope you will come back on the show when your next game is getting ready to hit Kickstarter.
Absolutely.
Keep us in the loop on any news you've got coming out.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
This is Cathy. In episode number 40, we're doing something a bit different. We're having an Ask Us Anything episode, and we want questions from you. If you would like to participate and ask us any question you like, just go to ourturnpodcast.com/AMA1. That's the number 1. This is a link to the thread in our Board Game Geek Guild number 2600. Ask your questions here by July 23rd, 2017, and we will do our best to answer them in episode number 40. Please remember that we are a family-friendly show, and your questions should reflect that. Otherwise, we are open. Do you have questions about our favorite types of games or game mechanics? Are you curious about how a podcast is put together? Do you want to know if we have pets and what their names are? The questions you can ask are almost endless. We look forward to hearing from you. Again, the link to the BGG thread is ourturnpodcast.com/AMA1. We look forward to hearing from you. For today's hot topic, I'm going to talk about card drafting games. This is one of my favorite mechanics, so let's start off by defining what a card drafting game is. According to the definition on Board Game Geek, these are games where players pick from a limited subset, such as a common pool of cards, in order to gain a long-term advantage in the game. There may be a draw pile option for players, but only having a draw pile is not a card drafting game. Card drafting involves players having a choice of options. One of those options can be pulling a card from the top of the draw pile. So let's take a look at some card drafting games. One that a lot of people are familiar with is Ticket to Ride. Players have an option of drawing from a pool of face-up cards or taking a card from the draw pile. Two of my favorite games, Firefly and Unfair, both have card drafting during gameplay. Because the players can pull jobs and equipment from the discard pile or the draw pile in Firefly, they have quite a few choices. In Unfair, there is a market to draw park cards from, and with other decks like the events and blueprints as well as the park draw pile, the players have the option of drawing 2 cards and keeping 1. All of these options are just different variations on the card drafting mechanic. 2 other popular games, Seven Wonders and Seven Wonders Duel, both utilize the card drafting mechanic but in different ways. In Seven Wonders, each player receives a hand of cards in each age and selects 1 card and then passes the hand to the player on her right or left, depending on which age you're in. In Seven Wonders Duel, in each age, a pyramid is created using the cards, with some being face up and others being face down. You cannot take a card from the pyramid until it's completely uncovered by the row below. While this limits your options somewhat, it does give you choices to make that affect how your strategy works. Games that also have a common pool of cards but are not card drafting games include Power Grid, Age of War, and Queen's Necklace. In Power Grid, you cannot just choose a power plant from the pool of cards. You have to win an auction. Sometimes you win that auction because nobody else bids for whatever reason. Because there is that challenge to your selection, this is not a drafting game. Age of War has a central pool of cards, but again, you cannot just take the ones you want. You have to roll dice in order to accumulate the needed weapons to conquer each castle. My last example is Queen's Necklace. You have a pool of cards to select from, but you must purchase these cards rather than just select them from the market. Again, because the choices aren't free, this is not a strictly card drafting game. This is more of a commodity speculation game. Good games to teach children this mechanic are Rocky Road a la mode and The Best Treehouse Ever. Rocky Road a la mode has a pool of cards to draw from. In this game, the cards serve several purposes, and you have to look at each card in the pool before deciding which one to take and how to use it. While this is a light filler game, the choices are meaningful. In The Best Treehouse Ever, the players are dealt a hand of cards from which they get to select one and then pass their leftover cards to the player on their left until all the cards are gone. Both of these games are easy to teach, quick to play, and very amusing for both kids and adults. They also make great gateway games for inexperienced players. So, what are your favorite card drafting games? Please let us know in Guild 2600 on BoardGameGeek. I'll have a link to the episode thread in the show notes. You can get to those by going to ourturnpodcast.com/episode 37. I look forward to seeing the different card drafting games you enjoy. As a thank you to our Patreon supporters, we are pledged to provide extra content just for you. We are working on more exciting shows for the regular podcast, which will always be free of charge to everyone. But as a special thank you to our Patreon supporters, we'll provide some extra content, and we are excited by some of the things we have planned just for you. Any amount starting at $1 per month will get you access to this special extra content. Here's a brief sample of what you'll hear.
Hey everybody, Jessica here. My favorite game that starts with the letter F is Fuji Flush. This game was published in 2016 and put out by Stronghold Games. And if you know anything about the trend at all, you won't be surprised by the fact that this game, Fuji Flush, titled with words that start with the letter F, was designed by a man whose first and last names also start with F, and that is Friedemann Friese. Mr. Friese is the designer of other games such as Fauna, Fearsome Floors, 504, Friday, and Fabled Fruit. But he did also design other games that don't start with the letter F, like a tiny little game called Power Grid. I've played some other great games that start with F, but Fuji Flush, this small box, super lightweight card game, hit the top of my list as the favorite because one of my favorite things to do is laugh, and this game is one that, without fail, induces so much fun and laughter. This game is really easy to play. It consists solely of a deck of cards numbered 2 to 20, and the higher valued cards are more rare. Everyone is dealt a hand of cards, and you want to be the first to shed all of them. Just get rid of them all. In clockwise order, players play a card in front of them. If the current player plays a card in front of them that is lower in value than the person before them or any other people before them, then nothing happens. If the card is higher in value than any card currently played on the table, the players with the lower cards have to discard them and then draw a new one into their hand. Now this keeps happening around the table, and then if it comes to a player's turn and the card that they played is still in front of them because it was the highest in value, then the card gets discarded without them having to draw a new one into their hands. And that's how you shed and try to get rid of all of your cards. What makes this game so interesting and laughter-inducing is when people play the card with the same value, because now they all add together and their sum is the number to beat. For example, if players 1, 2, and 3 each play a card valued at 3, then that adds up to 9, and player 4 would have to play a 10 or higher in order to force the other players to have to draw new cards. So, even though the game is competitive with ultimately one winner, sometimes people have to team up in order to force others to draw new cards. One night I played this game 3-player, and it was so cutthroat. And just so funny because it was constantly 2 against 1 and, forming alliances, but then allegiance is changing because maybe one person's running away with it and getting rid of all of their cards. And so you're trying to team up with the other people now to, fight that other person, make them grab new cards. And what's awesome is this game is really short. It only plays in 10 to 20 minutes. And it's just so much fun that one night when I played 3-player, we played the game like 6 times in a row because we were just having so much fun with it. So this game is really perfect for a game group like mine when you only have 3 or 4 people at the start of a game day while you're waiting for the late stragglers to show up. But what's even more awesome about this game is that it's one of the few out there that has a higher player count. It plays 3 to 8. So it's actually also the perfect game to end a game day when you have a bunch of people staying late and you just want to play something fun all together in one group to end the day. And at less than $14 on Amazon, you can't not have this great little game in your collection. So without a doubt, my favorite game that starts with the letter F is Fuji Flush. And if you haven't played it, go pick it up and play it with a game group. You guys are going to love it.
It was a dark and stormy night. You were wandering the streets of Bucharest, heading toward the old cemetery. You've heard tales that the servants of darkness are around, doing the evil bidding of their master. As you approach the crypt, you hear muffled voices within. You grab your gun and your crucifix and slowly open the rusting metal door. Inside, you see a cloaked figure hovering over an open coffin. As the metal door creaks open, the cloaked figure rises, a trail of blood coming down from the corners of his mouth. Good evening, Dr. Van Helsing. We meet again. There are several board games that are synonymous with the horror genre. Betrayal at the House on the Hill, Arkham and Eldritch Horror, Zombicide, Werewolf, but there's only one game that begins with the letter F, and to me it really brings home the story of Count Dracula, and that would be Fury of Dracula, currently in its 3rd edition, designed by Frank Books, Stephen Hand, and Kevin Wilson, published by Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight Games, and rated 151 overall at Board Game Geek. Now in this game, up to 4 players play as the main vampire hunters from Bram Stoker's novels, Nina Harker, Lord Godalming, Dr. Seward, and Dr. Van Helsing. One person plays as Count Dracula. Now, the goal of the Dracula player is to create chaos and spread his dark influence high enough to take over Europe by leaving behind surprises such as armed agents, plagues of rats and bats, and other vampires. Now, the newest edition makes both major and minor changes to the game, improving it in my opinion. It's much more thematic now, with the Dracula player only getting to operate during the night phases of each turn, and by streamlining by both the combat and the game goals. To me, raising Dracula's dark influence over Europe is a much more compelling theme than just leaving behind vampires as in the earlier editions. Also, the addition of rumor tokens gives the Dracula player another method to lead the players astray. Also, the artwork and stuff is much more improved and much more thematic. Now, to me, the most interesting part of this game is the use of the hidden movement mechanic by the Dracula player. Now, in the original game, First Edition, Dracula would use a movement tracking sheet to show where he was. And while it worked, it was easy for the Dracula player to get lost and maybe to accidentally backtrack or to knock some of the chits around that were used to represent his position. I would also have to refer to the main map a lot and occasionally get confused. Now, the 2nd and 3rd editions use a far better method by utilizing location cards that would be placed on the main game board and slid up and down the track as time passed or events altered the trail. It also allowed the players to see when Dracula used his special maneuver modes or did ocean travel. Very important clues to keep the hunters involved in the chase. To me, this method works a lot better and it helps to keep Dracula honest in his movement choices. I also think another improvement is the use of rail tickets instead of the rail die as in the 2nd edition. To me, it adds a much more thematic touch. Now, at its heart, this game is a one versus many, and I feel it's done right. There's a palpable tension between the hunters and Dracula, and with the modifications made in the 3rd edition, this game rises to the top of that genre for me. In my opinion, few games have done the one versus many right. Most of the time they either give the one too many advantages and the many too few options to counter them. But this game tends to balance both of those out. There are special abilities and events that the hunters have access to that can counter behind-the-scenes moves of Dracula. And then, when Dracula uses his special moves or goes by ocean travel to avoid the hunters, they can see it easily and be able to plan accordingly. To me, this isn't giving the hunters too much information. It makes sense that they would find out this information and to be able to react and adjust their plans. Now, overall, on the Our Turn podcast scale, I give this game a very solid 4. There are a few issues with game balance, and at times it still feels like several turns pass with no real progress made. But overall, it's an enjoyable experience, and the 3rd edition improves on an already great game. There's a good level of tension between the hunters and Count Dracula, and I feel this aspect really shines when there are more players. Now, I've thoroughly enjoyed this game as a 5-player game, even more than I have with just 2 or 3 or 4 players. Now, as someone who's played Dracula more often than the Hunter, it's a very rewarding experience when Dracula wins, and it's still even rewarding when the Hunters pull out a lucky victory. Also, as a side note, because of the end of the agreement between Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight, copies of this game may soon be hard to find. So if this is a game that you are interested in, I would definitely try to find a copy sooner rather than later. So if you're looking for a great game that starts with the letter F, I can easily recommend Fury of Dracula.
As I said before, Our Turn podcast will always be free of charge to everyone. We are committed to being a part of the gaming community and raising awareness of and bringing more women and girls, people of color, members of the LGBTQ community, and other marginalized groups into the gaming hobby. Board games, RPGs, and video games as players, collectors, designers, artists, and publishers. However, if you would like to be a part of our endeavors, please head over to patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. Thank you for your support. All right, so now we're coming to the end of the show, and it's time to talk about what I'm looking forward to in the next week or so. Well, first of all, Nicole is coming over for a visit on Tuesday, and so we're looking forward to that. Longtime listeners of the show will remember that Nicole has done segments and been a host on a show before. So I'm looking forward to that. She says she's got some news to share. That always makes me a little bit nervous, but hopefully it's good news. And then on Saturday, July 15th, a new friendly local game store is opening up near here. It's called The Ogre's Den, and it's in Orangevale, California, which is a suburb of Sacramento. Mark and I visited for their soft opening, and we met Joe, the owner. The store is set up for miniature gaming, which I haven't done a whole lot of, but it looks interesting. He's got several different environment mats set up on the tables. He also said he's working on getting a ladies' RPG night set up, and we'll have more information on the Facebook page once he's got all the details ironed out. I'm looking forward to seeing how this new store does. Maybe I'll try my hand at some miniature games sometime in the near future. Anyway, I wish Joe and the Ogre's Den good luck. So that's about all I've got today. If you want to connect with me online, you can find me on Twitter as @OurTurnPodcast. I also run the guild on BoardGameGeek.com. That's guild number 2600. Sarah runs our Facebook page, which you can find at facebook.com/OurTurnPodcast. Finally, our show notes for this episode are at OurTurnPodcast.com/episode 37. So I look forward to hearing what your favorite card drafting games are, and also hearing what you've been playing and what you've been up to. So until next time, on behalf of the entire Our Turn crew, that was our turn. Now it's yours. Thank you for listening. This episode was recorded on July 8th, 2017, and is written and produced by Cathy Ford with assistance from Alice Davis, Matt Jacobs, and Mark Ford. Next time, we'll discuss two-player games. We want and encourage your questions, comments, and feedback. Please call 916-426-2873 and leave us a short voicemail, or send an email to feedback@OurTurnPodcast.com. Our theme music was composed by Adriana Crickle. Please check out our show notes to learn more about the composers featured in this episode. The material in this episode is copyrighted under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. If you want to learn more about the games discussed in this episode, please visit our website at OurTurnPodcast.com/episode 37. You can find a list of the games along with the links to their listing on BoardGameGeek.com and an affiliate link to buy the games, which also helps to support the show. We are proud members of the Dice Tower Network. You can find out about other shows on the network like The Long View, The D6 Generation, or Flip the Table by going to DicetowerNetwork.com. Thank you for your support. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about us.